Hello, hockey humans of the world. Welcome to Tough Call Podcast, Season 7, Episode 5. This episode will cover the period from October 7th to 15th, 2025. On this episode, cross checking to the face continues to plague the NHL. It happened through the end of the playoffs into the preseason. There were multiple instances, and now it carries on through the regular season. It's a pretty easy fix for me. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it doesn't. Seems pretty easy to me, but I'll say it again anyway. This episode. Also, have I got a little soft on boarding this season? I've done probably a dozen reviews so far, and in only 2 week span, and I've only got maybe a couple, 2 to 3 suspensions out of it. There are two more this time around, though. So what's the difference between a clean or dirty hit next to the boards? I'll use the Zadorov hit on Rinzel. I think is my example to explain what I look for and what's the difference between clean and dirty and what a player should and shouldn't do, in my opinion. And that'll be coming up in my by request segment. Slashing or spearing? Do we really need to decide in some cases? I mean, more on that with the Myers and McDavid situation and the incident of the week. I'll go in depth on that. But slashing or spearing, did it really matter in that case? More on that. I am going to do something I don't normally do in my intro. First of all, I'm going to talk about expansion just for a second. I don't understand why they want to give places like Arizona or Atlanta a second, third chance. Like when you're not giving Quebec City another chance, for example, or somewhere else in Canada. The Winnipeg Jets, their comeback, they're a pretty fruitful organization. They were top of the league. They have a great fan base, lots of support. Canadian markets will work, and Quebec City is an incredible market. I don't know why they wouldn't be given a second chance before someone else is given a third chance. If you're going to keep giving out these chances, at least go with something that has the potential to be viable when you know other things have failed in the past. I think it's time to come back to Canada with another franchise. And even Halifax, somewhere, if you want to try somewhere new, try Hamilton, try Halifax, try somewhere else in Canada because they really do support their teams. The Mooseheads draw the largest crowds by far in the queue. We have multiple professional organizations across all sports in Halifax, and there's a market for it and a hunger for it. And so I don't know why you wouldn't at least try Quebec, though, if you're going to try something. And I have a combination jersey, the Halifax Citadels, up on the wall. Just awesome history. It would be so great to bring that back. The uniforms are the best. Try Quebec, try Halifax, please. Not Arizona again. And the board. Someone was asking me about the board in behind me. I guess it's on that side. Yeah. That is a magnetic playoff board. As some of you know, I use that to do my playoff prediction videos. I put all the teams in that playoff bracket and I move them around. But a little Easter egg I've thrown in there is I do update the standings now. So anytime you see most of the teams in the standings there, it will be updated with whatever the standings were for that day, whenever I record my podcast episode. And in this case, the reason there's not many teams in the standing side is because I also do the night's matchups. So any combinations of teams you see behind me there are the teams that are going to be playing tonight. So that's just something I throw in there. As always, if you want a more in-depth breakdown of any of the incidents I talk about here today, and for even more hits, questionable calls, check out my Tough Call YouTube channel. There's also some pretty good saves on there. I might try and do some goals a little bit here and there, but there's some different hockey highlights there, mostly hits, of course. Subscribe to the channel. That's the biggest way you can help me if you like what I do. Subscribe to that channel and get your friends to subscribe as well. It is growing. And it's a lot of fun. It's a good community to be around. I enjoy it very much. So subscribe to that channel. Help me out. And you can follow me on most social media platforms, including at Tough Call Pod on X and Blue Sky, Tough Call on Facebook, Tough Call Podcast on Instagram and Threads, and Tough_Call on TikTok. I'm also a contributing member of the Heavy Hockey Network. So go to their YouTube channel, check out some of the videos there and some of our podcasts, and read my articles on heavyhockey.com whenever I get around to writing them. There's a few there. Check them out. Check out our other writers there. It's a great site, especially if you're an Oilers fan, that site. But there's a lot of hockey things to talk about as well. And my theme song is written by Everett Boulton. So with that, let's get into the first segment, the weekly total fines and suspensions. Between October 7th and October 15th, 2025, the actual NHL's Department of Player Safety issued 2 fines and 1 suspension. Over that same time period, I, as Tough Call, would have issued at least 4 fines and 11 suspensions. And here's the ones we agree on. And again, I say agree on because I think that they were right to do something, but I don't necessarily agree with their actual actions. So let me put this up here so you can see what I'm talking about here. Jonathan Drouin was suspended 1 game for cross checking by the NHL. Now, I would have suspended him 8 games. And that's because, as I alluded to in the introduction, I'm a little bit harder on cross checks to the face. There is zero hockey purpose for a cross check to the face. There is no hockey situation where you should even come close to cross checking anyone in the face if you're doing things by the letter of the law. So I don't know why we allow players to get close enough and let them off the hook enough that they get close enough to get to the face. It should really be stopped waist or lower. So I agree with them for suspending Drouin because I would suspend for a cross check to the face. But what I can't get behind is the lack of consistency. I don't understand how, if you were a Department of Player Safety with the history you have and with the standard you've set, you could pull this one out of the pile as something you want to punish. It's crazy to me because this happened in a net front battle. And then the whistle blew, and then an opponent cross checked this player twice before he cross checked him in the face back. And Drew responded initially with a nice, low, light slash to just kind of flick him off like a fly and get away from me. And the player didn't respond to that. So he said, okay, enough is enough. You're done. And he cross checked him in the face. To me, that's a provoked attack on a player who is ineligible for contact. It's after the whistle. So it's a non hockey play. What's being done to him? And he responded, yes, with a more aggressive, unnecessary escalation, return non hockey play, but it was a return of something that was happening to him. In my system, that doesn't matter. But what I can't get behind or support or justify in my mind is a league that said the Tampa Bay Lightning players were so instigating of an incident that they fined the club $100,000 for what they did to the Panthers. They fined the coach $25,000, and they only fined 2 players on Tampa for cross-checking. They fined them when basically what they're saying is those were unprovoked attacks, and there was extra penalties, and there was multiple players doing it on that team. So why wouldn't you go harder on those unprovoked, unaggravated cross checks to the head that were much more vicious than this and intentional and premeditated, according to the league? How could you give those just fines and take this one in a heat of the moment when someone else is coming at you? How can you take that one and give it 1 game? It's absolutely baffling that they would justify that as something that should be more suspendable than some of the things that happened in the preseason. I don't get it. I can't even pretend to justify it. Um, October 11th, Ian Cole was fined $2,500 for a dangerous trip. It's the one where they were in front of the net and the puck was nowhere near them. And Ian Cole took a stick on the back of Jake Gensel's leg and drove his foot forward, basically creating a stick based slew foot is what it is. I mean, that's what they use the term dangerous trip. They invented it so that they don't have to call the term slew foot. In this case, it makes sense because he used a stick, but they also call leg trips and leg sweeps dangerous trips. They're not trips. They're basically slew foots. And the definition of slew foot in the NHL rulebook even does not require that upper body backwards motion like a lot of people think it does. It's just simply kicking the legs out from underneath your opponent in a dangerous way from behind, causing them to fall backwards on their head. That's a slew foot. So to me, this stick is doing the same thing as a slew foot. To be fair to the league, they treated this like they do slew foots. All they do is fine for that. There's no suspensions ever. But for me, it's a non-hockey play that's so needless, it's so dangerous that I want to get rid of it. So it goes in my 6 to 10 game suspension. So I'd give this one 7 games. They also Tyler Myers for slashing. That's the one that I'm going to talk about in my incident of the week. We're going to leave that one for the next segment. So let's get on to the ones that we don't agree on. Okay. So Will Borgen, I would fine him $2,500 for intentionally removing the helmet of an opponent. There was a call, a minor penalty for roughing, which they should call minor penalty for roughing, helmet removal of an opponent. So it was a great call. But for me, that automatically comes with a $2,500 fine. And it's happening way too much. We want to get rid of it. I've talked about it on both my earlier podcast, the last two podcast episodes, and into the preseason because it's just happening so regularly. I can't even keep up with it. There's actually a probably 15, literally 15 to 20 more that I would give out from a couple of scrums and some of the games that I'm not even going to get into because it's just too hard to keep track of them. I have too many other things to worry about, but just know that there would be probably upwards, including some of the ones I have mentioned, upwards of 20 to 25 fines for intentionally removing the helmet of an opponent so far this preseason and into the first week of the regular season. That's how frequently it happens. So keep that in mind. Thomas Hurdle, I would fine him $5,000 for an illegal check to the head. And it's the one where he kind of had his opponent pinned up against the boards and he didn't quite elbow him. He didn't quite cross check him. It just was head contact that didn't need to happen, but it didn't really almost have a category. They did call a minor penalty, which I think is the right call. And that's why I would fine it because my fines, remember, are just warnings. They're not really punishments to say, like, you could have avoided the head in some way that even though you didn't technically do really any action that's listed in the rule book, it was kind of a weird one. You still hit the head. So we're just going to blanket illegal check to the head fine this one to make sure you don't do it again. I would also fine Connor Dewar $2,500 for cross-checking. Now, again, I would fine, right? Normally I suspend, but that's because this one didn't hit the face. It was more to the chest, but it was aggressive. It was to a player that delivered a clean check, um, and he went after him right after the clean check and drove a cross-check to his chest. Now, the other player knocked his arms up, and it did end up going into his face, but it wasn't really after the fact and all the force was pretty much gone, but he still went at him aggressively with a cross check to the chest, which is no good to me. So I'm going to find that to make sure he doesn't get to the head, and that's part of the process of preventing head cross checks is because if you avoid the head but go low enough that you avoid the head but high enough that you could have hit the head, you're going to get a fine, and if you hit the head you're going to get 6 to 10 games. So it's probably going to be something that I'm not going to do unless I'm pretty sure the player really deserves it. Um, October 11th, Quinn Hughes, $2,500 for unsportsmanlike conduct. I would have fined him for smashing his stick after an empty net goal. It wasn't even heat of the moment, but even if it was, still, you have to be able to control your emotions. You should be able to skate by a post and not smash your stick on it. And I get it, 82 games of the year, you're probably going to get a little bit frustrated at times, and you might react a little differently sometimes in certain situations than other days. We all have good days, we all have bad days. We're all more angry in some moments and wish we didn't act the way we did sometimes. But to me, I just don't think it's too much to ask to not smash your stick in half because it's dangerous. The officials are around. No one has face coverage on. We've seen guys smash sticks on the bench and injure their opponents. We've seen people get body parts slammed indoors. We just have to ask players to be careful. It's a player safety issue. So that's why it becomes, to me, a finable offense because you're talking about potential danger where there really doesn't need to be any. And now for the suspensions, Alex Turcotte, 3 games for boarding. It's just a standard issue board. There was really nothing special about it other than, avoidability. And so for me, that's enough to put it in a suspension category where the league just be a minor penalty and they forget about it. But boarding happens too much, too often. It's too avoidable in a lot of cases. I don't suspend every boarding penalty. That's for sure. There is such thing as just a minor penalty for boarding for me, but this isn't it. It was too much. And speaking of which, Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, not the forward, I would have given him 3 games for boarding. To answer your other question, I think the other hit in that game was perfectly clean. There's a video about it on my YouTube channel. I thought it was very well done. I did not think this one was very well done. They are different hits to me, and I would suspend this one 3 games and leave the other one alone. Kiefer Sherwood, 6 games for unsportsmanlike for flipping the bird is what he did to somebody. And I know 6 games sounds crazy for a gesture, but to me, again, that's a very public gesture. A lot of people are watching. You're in open space, and it's just so avoidable and needless and aggressive, and like it would be so easy not to do it, right? That's the way I look at it. Like, how hard would it be to not do this gesture in this particular moment in front of everybody? I just don't think it's too much to ask. So, 6 games for that. Max Crozer, 4 games for elbowing, a flyby, arm lift up, super avoidable, head contact, no other contact to the body. Same thing as I would have given Nyes for his elbow, that the league gave nothing to. The league gave nothing for this as well. But I think, again, it's the avoidability factor. Another boarding, Evander Kane. I would have given him 3 games for boarding Regula, and he had a super clean check on Regula behind the net the same game later on. But the hit against the boards for me was just too much arm extension, driving the upper back into the wall and forcing the head down. And basically, it comes down to the player had no opportunity to protect himself from that check, from the danger of that check. So players have to be a little smarter when they go into the boards. Um, Oddly enough, another cross-checking to the face suspension, Wyatt Kaiser. I would have given him 6 games. I don't think I need to describe it any further. I mean, it's a cross-check to the face. What else can you say about it? You took your stick, you drove it in 2 hands up into someone's face. Suspendable. Should be automatic. Roman Yossi, 4 games for cross-checking Brady Kachuk. And again, I do my videos. They're not after the fact. They're not hindsight looking back. I did this video the day of this incident, or the morning after, before we ever knew that Brady Kachuk was going to miss some time with a wrist injury. I just always knew this was a dangerous check, whether Kachuk was hurt or not. So it's not rocket science here. He cross-checked him in the back. He was issued a minor penalty for cross-checking. Which is the right call. I don't think it was a major or anything like that, but I think it's damaging enough and dangerous enough that the Department of Player Safety should address this in some way, shape, or form. Probably for them, it would mean a fine. For me, it's a suspension because I've already set that standard. But to me, this one was like Kachuk wasn't even eligible for contact, let alone being cross-checked in the upper back at a dangerous distance from the boards in a situation where he wasn't really expecting to be checked, and so therefore wasn't really prepared to protect himself. It was an unfortunate result, kind of a freak injury, but not unreasonably predictable based on the situation. I think it would have been just as easy for Yossi not to cross-check him there as anything else. So I think that's what we should ask. And Ozzy Weisblatt, 6 games for interference, the driving Easton Cowan into the goalpost. I mean, it's dirty. Like the announcer doing that game, it's greasy, it's dirty, it's dangerous. They checked all the boxes, they saw it. And again, he was very great in saying, it's really not more than a minor penalty. You can't really call it intent to injure. And we don't know if it was intent to injure, but it was certainly avoidable and overly aggressive for the situation. Again, on a player who was ineligible for contact, that had no idea, unsuspecting, and driven right into the goalpost. So I just don't know why you wouldn't acknowledge that or have it stand out as something that's more dangerous than, say, a cross check to the face against someone who's coming at you and you're defending themselves. For example, I think this is worse. Now we will move on to our incident of the week. This episode's incident of the week is the Tyler Myers slashing on Connor McDavid. NHL Rule 61 defines slashing as the act of a player swinging his stick at an opponent or any forceful or powerful chop that is not an attempt to play the puck. They fined Tyler Myers $2,500 for this. I would have suspended him 7 games because I don't see this as a slash. Let's watch the clip. I just don't see this as a swing or a chop. I called it a spear, and I know it doesn't meet that definition of a spear either because it's not jabbing with the blade. But because I think they're stretching the definition to meet one rule, I think it's fair to stretch it just as much to meet the definition of a different rule. If they're going to stretch the slashing rule, then I'm going to try and stretch it to a rule that more accurately punishes the crime than the other. This is not a regular slash. This is a target to a known vulnerable location of a body with a weapon, is what it is. And McDavid knows it. Everyone knows it. This is not a slash. This is a pitchfork motion. And I had a referee friend suggest putting the word pitchfork in the rule book to take the place of slashing in this case, which I think would definitely be more accurate. It has nothing to do with hockey, serves no hockey purpose whatsoever. It would go in the 6 to 10 game suspension for me. I would give him 7 games. There's no doubt about it. And I did a little poll to see if I was wrong, because that's my opinion. Am I wrong to think that this doesn't meet the definition of a slash? So I asked you guys in a poll, and it turns out only 47% of you on Twitter, anyway, agreed with me. 15% said you would define this as a swing. 25% said you would define this as a chop. And 13% have said it could be either. So that means 53% of you thought that it could be defined as either a swing or a chop or both. And for me, I don't agree. But that's the beauty of tough call, right? We don't all have to agree. Apparently, I'm wrong in this particular instance. But I would like to see the term pitchfork added to the rulebook. I think that's a great idea by at Surveyor Brett. Um, so there you have it. I mean, what do you do? The poll, the poll can't be wrong, right? Thank you to the 40% of you, 47% of you who agreed with me. And now we'll get into the clean check of the week. And there were so many to choose from. I mean, open ice hitting is back, baby. That's all I can say. Hip checks, like I said last week, blindside hits, like I said last week, they're all back, but they're being done properly. They're not as dangerous anymore because players are remembering why there's checking in hockey, what the hockey purpose is. So they're doing it the right way by staying low, and they're not exploding or extending out. Now it just jinxed everything, and there's going to be just a rash of elbows and illegal checks to the head with shoulder extension and all that now, and chargings. I'm doing it to myself by saying it out loud, but look, I'm just enjoying it so much. The first week or so, week to 10 days of the regular season has provided us with so much body contact done the right way that it's just been super fun to watch. Um, it was really hard to pick one. There's a lot of clean checks on my clean check channel on my YouTube and shorts and stuff. If you want hitting, you go to my channel and you see some good hitting the way it's supposed to be done. It's not all bad, I promise you. I love contact and I want to see more of it, and I love to promote it when it's done the right way. Um, and Evander Kane did it the right way. So I mean, if you just take a look here, like he uses body position. He just lines himself up in a place where the opponent is going to run into him. There's no extension, no explosion, no drive. It's a good path of travel, and he's just sitting there waiting for him to come. He stays low and absorbs impact. You do not have to drive up to take impact, like people say. You do not have to explode up to protect yourself. You need to stay braced and have a good base and be strong on your skates. And a big man like Regula runs into you, and you're able to handle it like this and drop him because of good body position and proper preparation and going into the body contact the right way. It's just awesome, and I want to see more of this. Um, if you position yourself properly, the opponent will run into you and basically hit themselves. And that is the way a body contact should be approached. You are just finishing the process of angling a player and taking away their space. And when they run out of space, they're inevitably going to run into you. And then as long as you're ready for that happening, at the moment it happens, you're good to go. This is a perfect example of how you don't need to do anything extra to blow a guy up, even a guy as big as Regula. And now let's get into this week's by request. This episode's by request again comes from a Twitter follower. This time it's a longtime follower at PollyC1117. And as I said in the intro, it'll be the Zadorov hit on Rinzel. And for the third week in a row, I'm going to use the phrase, sometimes the hits that feel wrong just aren't. And that's probably why people are requesting these, why they're drawn to these types of incidents, because it just looks like there's something about them that shouldn't be right, or that you wonder how such a catastrophic result could happen if something is done right. So, you know, Sometimes it's just the player that's receiving the check isn't aware enough or isn't ready enough or makes a decision that makes it so that they don't receive the check very well. Sometimes that's all it is. I'm not a big victim blamer, and I'm not a big proponent of someone being overly committed to a check that they can't react to someone turning. But in this case, it does happen. There's a player that turns. Zadorov takes the same angle of approach from a very long distance of travel, and he never wavers from it. He's always telling this opponent what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, and the opponent simply tries to turn to avoid it. And Zadorov can't do anything about it. He doesn't drive through. He doesn't slam forcefully into him. He actually does try and shift just a little bit to soften the contact, which you have to give him marks for. Unfortunately, he's just a big person, and he's already on a path that's taken him too close, and by then it's just too hard to get out of the way. This is an example, by the way, of the have your say videos that I'll put on my website. For those of you that are actually watching the video portion, you'll see at the end of the screen that pops on. It says have your say, and you can go leave your comments on hits like these. Um, but but yeah, so to me, it's all about angle of approach. He did the right thing on angle of approach, and he never changed it at the last second to make contact worse. He tried to make it better, just didn't work out. So to me, it's a clean check. Zadorov did everything right, and the opponent that was receiving the check put himself in a vulnerable position at the last second to the point where he could not react. So I would conclude obviously no supplemental discipline, and in this case, not even a penalty, which I think was the right thing to do by the on ice official. I think they got it right. Now let's move on to our final segment. Here's the thing. The NHL changed its language in their actual rulebook from linesman to linesperson in 2023-24. And I've used the term linesperson fairly regularly throughout my videos. It makes sense since I often quote the rulebook, and the wording in the rulebook is linesperson. So why wouldn't I use it? But I want to be clear. I also use the term because I believe in inclusivity. Um, I'll get more to what I mean on that in a minute. But occasionally in my videos, because I use this term, I revert back to linesman sometimes in my videos. Or sometimes I've even flip flop back and forth, saying one sentence and I'll use the term linesperson. And then in the next sentence in the same video, I say linesman. It happens sometimes, and it prompts people to, they just can't help themselves, right? And they leave comments. Gotcha. You slipped up. You know you were wrong. Uh, the comments I see most often actually are like the term linesperson is you forcing your beliefs on us, or it's language appropriation. Some quite simply say linesperson is wrong because we know it's a man, so you're supposed to use linesman. Uh, I don't think that's true, but I mean, honestly, every video that I have that's more than a month old where I've said the term linesperson in it has at least one comment with something along the lines of "It's linesman fixed it for you," or just the word linesman, like I've used the wrong there or something, and they're just saying, "Oh, it's not THEY apostrophe RE, it's THEIR." Like they got me on some grammatical thing. I'm tired of saying the same response, typing it out over and over again. So I'm going to put out a video, and then I'm probably not going to address this anymore. And I'm going to address it here for my podcast listeners. First of all, inclusion means different things to different people. So for me, a big part of it is I coach both male and female hockey and co ed hockey. So I have flip flopping back and forth. I'm going from one rink at 5 o'clock teaching male players to another rink at 7 o'clock teaching female players. And I have teams where there's mixed, there's co ed. So I don't know who I'm talking to from 1 minute to the next in a lot of cases. I just go to one session and I use generic, inclusive terms. Like instead of saying, hey guys, come in, I'll say hey folks, or hey gang, or hey everyone, or something basic like that. And I just get in the habit of using those terms. If I'm saying the term hey guys, that has been okay for years, but it's not wrong to say hey gang. That's also okay. Or hey folks, that's also okay, isn't it? So to me, inclusivity is just trying to make sure that everyone feels like I'm talking to them. It's and sometimes when I'm coaching a boys team and there's one girl on it, I'll say, "Hey, girls, come on in." And what's the difference if I'm teaching a co-ed team and there's one girl on it, and I say, "Hey, guys," and then that person comes over? What's the difference if I have uh, girls mostly, and then one boy, and I say, "Hey, girls, come in"? It's the same thing, right? But I don't like to do that either. I try and use you know blanket terms that cover everybody, folks, gang. Like those are the ones I mostly draw to. It's just part of my situation where I'm jumping back and forth all the time. So if I slip up, it's not that I'm wrong. And you say, like, I don't know, it's not a gotcha moment. It's just that, oh, I used a term that may or may not apply here. And that happens to everybody. It's not that I'm trying to force the word lines person onto you, and when I use it, you're catching me using the wrong word because I just really want to use lines person all the time. It's it's just that I'm trying to have inclusive terms be part of my day-to-day language. So that's all it is. I just don't I just don't see how you can say that I'm wrong, and that's what gets me. That's the worst part, and that's what I won't stand for. Is the commenters that think I'm the one appropriating language, that I'm forcing my beliefs onto them by saying lines person. Because in me saying that word, I'm not forcing you to listen to it. It means they think it means I'm forcing them to use my terminology. But in those conversations, the comments, there's only one person trying to force the other to use a certain term. And guess what? It's not me. You're telling me I'm wrong for using the term linesman or lines person, sorry. You're telling me I'm wrong for using that term. And you think it would be right to use the term linesman. When really I've never said you were wrong for using linesman. I've never forced you to use the term, but I will say that if you see a human being and you call that human being a lines person, you are right 100% of the time because that is a person. Whereas if you say linesmen, you are taking the chance that you are wrong. There's a better chance of you being wrong using the term linesman than there is of me using the term lines person. So if anyone wants to say that you're trying to force someone to put a term on someone, it is the person telling me I'm wrong for using the term linesman. You are wrong, not me. And you are the one trying to force me to use your language, not the other way around. And that's the show for today. My theme song is written by Everett Boulton. Remember to find me on social media at Tough Call Pod on X and Blue Sky, the Tough Call page on Facebook, at Tough Call Podcast on Instagram, and at Tough_Call on TikTok. Subscribe to Tough Call on YouTube and follow and rate my podcast on whatever platform you listened on today. And see you next week.